9 brilliant minds, 9 elite executives failed. Trapped in a labyrinth of numbers and laws, they watched a fortune of $180 million slip through their fingers. But then, amidst the chaos, an intern called in to reprogram the air conditioning said something that shocked everyone. In just 30 seconds, everything changed for everyone. The air in the Byrne Industries boardroom, in the beating heart of New York, was thick, heavy with frustration and the metallic smell of cold coffee. The air conditioning system stubbornly failed to function, leaving the room stuffy, a perfect reflection of the tension suffocating the 9 executives gathered. The voice of Derek Byrne, 32, CEO of the tech giant, cut through the space like a blade of ice, each word crackling in the stagnant air. He slammed his fist against the solid mahogany desk, a dry sound that echoed in the room. This is unbelievable. 2 weeks. 2 weeks with the brightest minds in the corporate world, and we're still in the same place. Around the imposing table, 9 executives exchanged uncomfortable glances, each avoiding Derek's furious gaze, pale and tense faces. Italian suits, once impeccable, were now wrinkled from days spent in the office, reeking of sleepless nights and sacrificed weekends, all for nothing. $180 million. It wasn't just a number, it was the future of Byrne Industries, Derek's reputation, and the careers of everyone there hanging by a thread. Mr. Thorne, the grey-haired CFO, adjusted his designer glasses, the silver frames gleaming in the cold ceiling light, and dared to speak. "Derek, we are exploring all available legal options. This type of international tax issue doesn't have an easy solution." "Isn't there an easy solution, or are you simply not competent enough to find one?" Derek snapped back, his gaze burning through every person in the room. "I pay each of you 6-figure salaries to deal with problems exactly like this." Ms. Evans, head of international relations, tried to remain calm, her voice a thread of silk amidst the storm. "And if we renegotiate with the Japanese Ministry of Finance, perhaps—" The deadline expired 48 hours ago. Mr. Thorne interrupted her, his voice thick with impatience. "How many times will we have this same discussion? We're stuck with the current terms. Period." Mr. Miller, Vice President of International Operations, cleared his throat nervously, the dry sound breaking the tense, muffled silence. "We could restructure using offshore subsidiaries in the Cayman Islands. This could help us circumvent the problematic clause and expose us to legal risks that would cost us more in lawsuits than we would ever save with the merger." Mr. Thorne practically shouted, completely losing his temper. "Do you really have MBAs from Harvard, or did you buy your degrees online?" The boardroom looked like a war zone after weeks of battle. Crumpled papers piled up around the edges of the table. The whiteboard was covered in numbers, formulas and graphs that stubbornly refused to make sense. Derek ran a hand over his face, his irritation bordering on despair. He had inherited Byrne Industries at 26, transforming his father's company into a globally respected technology empire. 6 years of building, innovation and achievements, and now he was trapped, cornered by a contract and tax issues that 9 extremely expensive professionals couldn't resolve. The merger with Tech Nippon, a Japanese software giant, was supposed to be the crowning achievement of his success. A company that, combined with Byrne Industries, would reshape the global market. Shareholders were eager, the media was buzzing, competitors were anxious. But a cursed clause, buried in a trade agreement between the US and Japan, had frozen everything. The penalty for breaking the terms, $180 million lost before the merger even generated any profit. Does anyone here have a real solution? Something viable? Derek asked. His voice was low, but it carried enough weight to end the entire discussion instantly. Or are we going to keep going in circles until time runs out? Because, honestly, if that's the case, I'm going to fire every single one of you and sort this out. At least it would be faster. Total silence. 9 highly paid executives avoided the CEO's eyes. Mr. Hayes, Director of Mergers and Acquisitions, spoke softly. We could bring in external consultants. McKinsey has specialists in international tax law who perhaps... Maybe. Derek repeated the word, dripping with anger. I don't pay you for maybes, Mr. Hayes. It was precisely at that moment, with the tension at its peak, that the door to the boardroom opened. Juliet entered, pushing a tool cart, its metal wheels creaking softly on the polished marble. She wore the company's engineering uniform, black dress pants, a navy blue polo shirt with the discreet Byrne Industries logo. Her light brown hair was tied back in a practical ponytail, and her thin-rimmed glasses rested on the tip of her nose. Her intense green eyes scanned the room, searching for the air-conditioning unit. She was a stark contrast to the expensive suits and tense faces. "Excuse me," she murmured, her eyes lowered as she walked directly toward the air-conditioning unit built into the wall. No one looked at her. No one ever did. To them, Juliet was just part of the furniture, like the air conditioner she was about to reprogram, the engineering intern, $15 an hour to fix technical problems and remain invisible. 4 months of the same routine, entering rooms like that 5 and 6 times a day, always ignored, always forgotten. But Juliet saw everything, and she understood far more than anyone in that room could imagine. While Juliet opened the air-conditioning panel, Mr. Thorne impatiently tried to calibrate the projector to display a new graphic. The device flickered, made a strange buzzing sound, and the screen went black. "Damn it!" he cursed. "Now the projector too. Can someone fix this?" Without lifting his head from the dashboard, Juliet reached for his toolbox. "It's probably just a loose cable or a network configuration," she said, her voice calm and professional. She picked up a small cable tester and moved behind the desk where the projector was plugged in. In less than 15 seconds, she identified the problem, reconnected a loose Ethernet cable, and the projector came back to life, displaying the graphic with crystal clarity. "Okay," she said, turning back to the air conditioning. Mr. Thorne blinked, surprised. "Oh, thank you," he murmured, a little embarrassed. Mrs. Evans and Mr. Miller exchanged glances. A low, venomous whisper came from Mr. Hayes, who was standing next to Mr. Thorne. "Wow, it seems she's not just a pretty face. I didn't know beautiful women were part of the maintenance team," Juliet heard. She felt a blush rise to her neck, but forced herself to ignore it. She wasn't there to be seen, much less to be praised or insulted. She was there to fix things. As Juliet continued to reprogram the air conditioner, her eyes, sharpened by 4 intense years of studying financial engineering, took in the numbers scribbled on the whiteboard, the complex formulas, the cash flow charts projected in every direction, and then she saw it. The mistake was so obvious, so basic, that Juliet had to bite her lip to keep from laughing out loud. They were using the wrong tax treaty, applying old, outdated regulations when a crucial 2023 amendment, specifically Section 51A, created a perfect exception for exactly that type of technology merger between American and Japanese companies. It was basic international trade material, first semester any average student would know. Juliet continued working on the air conditioner, her mind racing. Should she say something? It wasn't her problem. She wasn't paid to save billion-dollar companies. She was paid to reprogram appliances and keep quiet. Besides, those people had treated her like she was invisible for months. Why help them? The answer came when Mr. Hayes, engrossed in his laptop, reached for a glass of ice water that was on the table, without even looking at Juliet. He grabbed it with a careless movement and, with a brusque gesture, spilled half of the icy liquid directly onto Juliet's shirt. The cold water soaked the thin fabric, causing a thermal shock and a feeling of humiliation. "Watch out," Mr. Hayes murmured, his eyes still fixed on the laptop screen. No apology, no acknowledgement. Juliet felt her cheeks burn with anger. She felt shame rise up her neck like boiling lava. She felt 4 months of being invisible, casually dismissed, treated like nothing by people who earned in a week what she earned in a year. She had a college degree, academic honors, graduated at the top of her class in financial engineering from New York University. And there she was, drenched in ice-cold water, humiliated, invisible, while 9 expensive MBAs couldn't solve a problem she could fix in her sleep. Something inside Juliet snapped. She grabbed a rag from her toolbox, dried the water on her uniform, and then, unplanned, unfiltered, said in a sharp, sarcastic tone she didn't even try to hide, "Have you tried applying Article 51A of the 2023 tax treaty to technology companies? It solves this problem." The silence that fell over the room was deafening. 9 heads turned at the same time, as in a slow-motion scene. 9 wide faces stared at her as if she had just spoken an alien language. Derek, who was about to take another sip of water, froze with his glass in mid-air. He turned to her, his intense blue eyes fixed on hers with a force Juliet had never felt before. He took 3 slow steps toward her. "What did you say?" Derek's voice was low, controlled, but something new was in it. Genuine interest, raw surprise, perhaps even hope. Juliet swallowed hard, the weight of 9 astonished glances making her heart race. It was too late to back down. She raised her chin, met Derek Burns' sharp gaze, and repeated it, this time with a confidence that surprised even herself. Article 51A of the 2023 International Trade Tax Treaty. It created a specific exemption for technology mergers between American and Japanese companies that meet 3 required criteria. Juliet paused deliberately, letting each word sink into the supposedly brilliant minds around him. Proven and documented innovation, retention of at least 80% of the original workforce, and maintaining headquarters on American soil. Byrne Industries meets all 3. The tax penalty you're trying to circumvent doesn't even apply. You have been using the 2017 treaty as a reference. You have been looking at completely outdated numbers for 2 whole weeks. Mr. Thorne was the first to speak again, and his voice came out with a venomous layer of condescension. "And where exactly does a simple engineering intern get this kind of technical information? From some business podcast you listen to while fixing appliances?" But Derek already had his laptop open, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Mrs. Evans picked up her tablet. Mr. Miller hurriedly unlocked his phone. Mr. Hayes opened several windows on his computer, one by one. They all began to check, search, confirm. The silence in the room shifted from frozen shock to intense concentration. "My God," Mrs. Evans whispered, the tablet screen illuminating her pale face. "She's right. The article exists. The 2023 amendment. The exception for technology mergers. We literally meet all the requirements." As Juliet realizes that her 30 seconds of courage just challenged 9 elite executives and tries to process the weight of everyone's gaze in that boardroom. I really want to know, what part of the world are you listening to this story from right now? Leave your comment below. I love reading every single one of you. And if you're enjoying this journey, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. "Impossible!" Mr. Thorne shook his head firmly, but his hands trembled visibly as he checked his own computer. The color slowly drained from his face, replaced by a pale, almost ghostly white. Mr. Miller looked at Mr. Hayes in disbelief. Mr. Hayes looked at Mrs. Evans, stunned. Mrs. Evans turned to Derek, waiting for confirmation. Derek slowly lifted his eyes from the laptop screen, his expression a mixture of relief, disbelief, and something very close to admiration. "She's absolutely right," he confirmed, his voice low, almost reverent. Article 51A is real. It was implemented in April 2023, and we've met every single requirement perfectly. He looked up, and for the first time in Juliet's 4 months working on that floor, Derek Byrne actually saw her. He didn't look through her as if she were furniture. He saw her. "Very good, Juliet," he said, a slow, genuine smile forming on his lips. "Very good indeed." Juliet simply nodded, still processing everything. She had done it. She had saved the company. She had proven her worth. And now she was exhausted. She picked up her toolbox and turned away. "My shift is over, Mr. Byrne," she said, her voice a little hoarse. "I have to go." But Derek began, still stunned. The merger problem is solved, Mr. Byrne. All that's left is to apply Article 51A. The rest is just paperwork." She pointed to Mr. Thorne. "He can handle it. He's the CFO, after all. Good luck with the 180 million, Mr. Byrne." And with that, Juliet walked through the door, letting it close behind her with a firm click, leaving 9 elite MBA executives and a billionaire CEO completely motionless, trying to process the fact that the invisible intern, the one none of them had ever given a second glance, had just solved in 30 seconds the problem that had brought them down for 2 whole weeks. Juliet had barely closed the door to the boardroom when she heard the explosion of voices behind her, shouting, debating, someone banging on the table. She pushed her tool cart down the luxurious hallway of the 42nd floor, trying to stop her hands from trembling. What had she just done? 4 months of being invisible. 4 months of keeping her head down, reprogramming equipment, doing basic maintenance work, earning her $15 an hour without complaining. And in 30 seconds, she had thrown it all away. She would probably be fired before the end of the week. Juliet pushed the tool cart to the service elevator, pressed the button for the basement where the engineering department was located, and leaned her head against the cold metal wall. Her heart was still racing. The words she had uttered echoed in her mind like a scratched record. "Have you tried applying Article 51A of the 2023 tax treaty?" Who did she think she was? The heroine of some cheesy movie. A corporate Cinderella. The elevator moved slowly, those 42 floors feeling more like 200. When the doors finally opened in the basement, Juliet pushed her tool cart out and almost bumped into Lena Taus, her best friend and colleague from the department. "Whoa, slow down!" Lena grabbed the cart, preventing the collision. "You look like you've seen a ghost. What happened up there?" Juliet opened his mouth to reply, but before he could say anything, his phone vibrated in his pocket. A message from an unknown number. "I need to talk to you. Engineering. 5 minutes. D. Byrne." Juliet showed the screen to Lena, who widened her eyes. "D. Byrne, the billionaire CEO. D. Byrne," Lena practically shouted. "The richest man in New York just texted you." "Juliet, what the hell did you do up there?" "I kind of solved an $180 million problem that 9 executives couldn't fix in 2 weeks." Juliet murmured, still not believing her own words. Lena was silent for a full 3 seconds. Then she burst into laughter so loud it echoed down the basement hallway. "Of course, and I'm secretly Wonder Woman." "Juliet, seriously, what really happened?" "I'm serious," Juliet insisted. "They were using the wrong tax treaty, and I just opened my mouth and said something." Lena's expression changed from amused to genuinely shocked. "What did you do, Juliet? You know we're not paid to talk, right? We're paid to be invisible and fix things." "I know, believe me, I know." Juliet ran her hands over her face. "But that idiot Mr. Hayes spilled ice water on me and didn't even apologize, and I lost my temper." "So you decided to embarrass 9 MBA executives in front of the billionaire CEO?" Lena shook her head, but smiled. "Girl, you're my hero, but also completely crazy." The main elevator rang. The doors opened. Derek Byrne emerged from the basement into the employee engineering area. The billionaire CEO of Byrne Industries. wearing a suit that cost more than Juliet's car, stood there, looking around as if he'd just landed on another planet. Lena gave Juliet a gentle nudge. "Good luck," she whispered, then disappeared down the engineering shed hallway with impressive speed. Traitor! Derek walked over to Juliet, his hands in his pockets, his expression very different from the one he had worn in the boardroom. Now there was curiosity and something more that Juliet couldn't decipher. "Mr. Byrne," Juliet began, trying to sound professional, "I need to apologize for saving my company $180 million. Derek interrupted her, raising an eyebrow. "Please don't apologize for that." Juliet blinked, confused. "I checked," Derek continued. "Twice, 3 times, actually. You were absolutely right. Article 51A applies perfectly to our case. 2 weeks, 9 people, millions spent on consultants, and the answer was right in front of us the whole time." He paused, studying her face. "How did you know?" Juliet took a deep breath. There was no point in lying now. "I have a degree in financial engineering from New York University, with honors. I graduated last December. International trade was my specialty. Article 51A was the subject of my graduate thesis." Derek was silent for a moment, absorbing it all. "You have a degree in financial engineering," he repeated slowly, "with honors, and you're working here, reprogramming devices for $15 an hour." It wasn't a question. It was a statement laden with meaning, but not the kind Juliet expected. It wasn't judgment. It was genuine confusion. "Life happens," Juliet said simply, crossing her arms. "My mother got sick during my senior year of college. The treatment drained everything we had, and then some. When I graduated, I was almost $100,000 in debt. I needed money fast, not unpaid internships or entry-level jobs that barely paid anything. The internship here pays $15 an hour, offers health insurance, and is close to the hospital where my mother receives treatment." She raised her chin defiantly. "It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills, most of them anyway. And during my interview, the HR manager told me there were no opportunities in finance, only engineering and maintenance. I took what I got." Derek nodded slowly, and Juliet could almost see the gears turning behind those sharp blue eyes. "How much do you earn per week?" $600, sometimes less, depending on my hours. What if I offered you $5,000 a week? Juliet was sure he'd misheard. "Excuse me, what?" $5,000 a week, Derek repeated as casually as if he were offering her coffee. "Not a life-changing sum, temporary consulting. You help me finalize this merger. Make sure there are no more obvious mistakes that 9 expensive people missed. 2, maybe 2 weeks of work." Juliet did the math in her head. $5,000 a week, 3 weeks, $15,000. That would pay for her mother's medication for 6 months. It would cover the back rent. Maybe there would even be enough left over to buy decent clothes. But then reality hit her like a bucket of cold water. "They're going to hate me," she said, her voice more vulnerable than she intended. "All of them. I'm going to walk into that room tomorrow, and they're going to tear me apart. They're going to make my life miserable." Derek probably agreed with brutal honesty. Mr. Thorne, especially, has an ego the size of New York City. Being corrected by someone he sees as inferior is going to hurt. "So why would I do that?" he thought aloud. "Because you need the money. Because you're good. Because 3 weeks of hell are worth $15,000, Derek shrugged. "And because, if we're honest, part of you wants to prove you're better than all of them put together." Juliet hated that he was right. "I don't accept charity," she said firmly. "This isn't charity. You saved my company from losing $180 million because my elite team apparently doesn't know how to use Google." Despite everything, Juliet laughed. A short laugh, a little nervous, but genuine. $5,000 a week, she repeated, still testing her words. And if it takes longer, we'll renegotiate. Juliet looked at her water-soaked uniform. She looked at the underground engineering area where she had spent 3 months being invisible. Then she looked at Derek Byrne, a billionaire CEO who, for some reason, was betting on her. "I have one condition," Juliet said, surprising even herself. "I'm listening. No pity, no special treatment, because you feel sorry for the poor girl with the sick mother. If I fail, if I don't deliver, you fire me without hesitation. I don't want mercy. I want respect." Derek extended his hand. "Done." Juliet shook his hand. It was warm, the grip firm. A handshake that sealed a deal that would change everything. "The first meeting is tomorrow," Derek said, 9 a.m. with international investors. "Wear something appropriate." He turned to leave, but stopped. "Juliet, yes, welcome to Byrne Industries. For real, this time." Derek got into the elevator and disappeared. Juliet stood there, processing. Lena ran out of the engineering area. "Well, what happened? Were you fired, promoted? Did he propose?" "He offered me $5,000 a week to be a temporary consultant." Lena's jaw dropped. "And you said—" "I said yes." "Oh my God," Lena cried, grabbing Juliet's arms. "You're rich. You are." "I'm completely terrified," Juliet interrupted her, "because tomorrow morning I'm going into that room with 9 people who hate me and will do everything they can to tear me apart." Lena held Juliet's face in her hands. "So you go in there and show them what you're made of? Juliet, show them that the engineering intern is smarter than all of them put together." Juliet nodded, trying to believe in herself. But somewhere on that same floor, hidden away in his luxurious office, Mr. Thorne was already plotting exactly how to destroy Juliet's career before it even began. The New York morning sun had barely begun to kiss the glass and steel skyscrapers when Juliet stepped into the executive elevator. It wasn't the basement service elevator nor the employee elevator. This was the quiet elevator, with its polished wood paneling and subtle scent of cleanliness, reserved for the upper echelons of Byrne Industries. Juliet wore a new uniform, not the intern jumpsuit, but impeccably tailored trousers and a navy silk shirt, a gift from Lena, who insisted she needed something befitting her new status. She felt like an imposter, her heart pounding frantically against her ribs. In her hand was not a tool cart, but a thin leather briefcase containing her notes and a copy of Article 51A. As she stepped onto the boardroom floor, the silence was almost palpable, broken only by the soft click of her low heels on the marble. The meeting room, once a battleground of frustration, now felt like a courtroom awaiting its verdict. The 9 executives were already seated, their faces a mixture of restrained curiosity and barely disguised hostility. Mr. Thorne, the CFO, was at the head of the table, his narrow eyes fixed on Juliet like a predator assessing its prey. Ms. Evans, head of international relations, barely lifted her eyes from her papers. Mr. Miller, VP of International Operations, and Mr. Hayes, Director of M&A, exchanged quick glances, an almost imperceptible smile on Mr. Hayes's lips. Derek Byrne stood by the window, watching the city, but Juliet felt his gaze on her the moment she entered. He turned, a slight nod of acknowledgement. "Good morning, Juliet," he said, his voice calm but with undeniable authority. "Please, sit down. There's a lot of work to be done." Juliet chose the most discreet chair possible at the end of the table, away from Derek and near the door. She felt heavy stares on her, but maintained her composure. Derek cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. "Gentlemen, Ms. Evans, as you know, Ms. Juliet will be joining us as a temporary consultant for the merger with Tech Nippon. Juliet, please." A brief introduction. Juliet swallowed hard. This was her chance to establish her credibility. She stood up, folder in hand. "Good morning, everyone. My name is Juliet Scott. I graduated with honors from New York University in financial engineering. My thesis, which I defended with distinction in December 2024, addressed the complexities of international tax treaties for technology mergers, with a special focus on the 2023 amendments, such as Article 51A. A heavy silence fell over the room. The executives, who had expected a presentation from an intern, were visibly shocked. Mr. Thorne pursed his lips. "And if you're so qualified, why are you doing a maintenance engineering internship?" The question was laden with sarcasm and disdain. Juliet wasn't intimidated. She knew this question was coming. Like many young professionals in New York, "I face financial challenges, Mr. Thorne. My mother became seriously ill during my senior year of college, and the costs of her treatment, coupled with my student debt, forced me to seek employment that offered a stable salary and health insurance, even if it wasn't in my immediate field of study. My goal is to raise funds for an MBA in international business next year, which would complement my financial engineering background and allow me to work in positions like yours." She paused, a slight, defiant smile playing on her lips. "Until then, I'm here to ensure Byrne Industries doesn't lose $180 million, Ms." Evans coughed, suppressing a smile. Mr. Miller glanced at Mr. Hayes, whose mouth was slightly open. Derek Byrne, for his part, had a glint of approval in his eyes. "Excellent, Juliet," Derek said, breaking the silence. "Now, let's get down to business. Mr. Thorne, please continue with the presentation of the remaining fiscal risks." To describe the atmosphere in detail, the meeting continued, but the atmosphere had changed. Juliet was no longer just the intern. She was the consultant with an honors degree and a declared ambition to sit in those chairs. Mr. Thorne, visibly irritated, tried to undermine Juliet's confidence at every opportunity. He fired off tricky questions, used complex jargon, and presented intricate tax scenarios, hoping she would stumble. "Ms. Scott," Mr. Thorne said with a forced smile, during the analysis of a profit repatriation clause, "considering the volatility of the yen and the recent fluctuations in Bank of Japan interest rates, what would your projection be for the exchange rate impact on our post-merger debt structure, assuming a 5% yen devaluation scenario over the next 18 months? He expected her to stammer. Juliet, however, did not hesitate. She picked up a pen and began scribbling in a notepad, her mind working at high speed. "Thorne, your premise is interesting, but incomplete. If we consider only the devaluation of the yen, the impact would be negatives, of course, but we are ignoring the natural hedge that Byrne Industries already has through its investments in green technology in Japan, which are denominated in yen. Furthermore, the 2023 treaty, Article 32, allows for compensation for exchange rate losses on long-term investments, which would significantly mitigate the risk. In fact, if the yen devalues by 5%, and we apply Article 32, we could even have a small tax advantage on repatriation depending on the capital structure we adopt." She raised her eyes, a glint of challenge in them. "I've already prepared a model that demonstrates this. Would you like me to present it?" Mr. Thorne remained silent, his face flushed. Ms. Evans beside him couldn't suppress a smile. Mr. Miller cleared his throat. Derek Byrne, for his part, simply nodded, a look of approval on his face. "Please, Juliet," Derek said. "Share your model." Juliet projected a complex graph onto the screen, explaining each variable with clarity and confidence. Her youthful energy and passion for the subject were contagious, even to the most skeptical executives. She wasn't just presenting data, she was teaching it. With each answer, with each model, Juliet dismantled Mr. Thorne's attempts to discredit her, leaving him increasingly perplexed by her insight and audacity. Detailed Juliet's comments and reaction. In the days that followed, Juliet became the center of attention, for better or for worse. In the hallways, whispers were constant. That intern, did she really save the merger? I heard she's a genius in financial engineering, and she's so young. How did she do it? The envy was palpable. During lunch in the executive cafeteria, Juliet overheard a group of analysts commenting, "She's too pretty to be that smart," one of them said, laughing. "She must have some trick up her sleeve. Or maybe she's not just a pretty face, but also has a brain worth $180 million, Juliet retorted, turning to them with a sweet smile, but her eyes sparkling. The analysts fell silent, embarrassed. Juliet simply picked up her tray and sat at another table. She was used to being underestimated, but now she had a voice, and she wasn't afraid to use it. Her energy was inexhaustible. She arrived early, left late, and immersed herself in the data with an intensity that would make even the most senior executives feel exhausted just watching. She wasn't just doing a job, she was building her future, brick by brick. Tension in the boardroom reached a new level when Mr. Thorne once again tried to belittle Juliet. During a discussion about the implementation of new financial modeling software, he suggested that Juliet, being only an intern, lacked the necessary experience to lead the project. "With all due respect, Mr. Byrne," Mr. Thorne said condescendingly, "Ms. Scott is brilliant, no doubt, but this is a highly complex project, requiring years of experience in project management and systems integration. Perhaps we should assign someone more senior." Derek, who had been observing the scene with a neutral expression, slammed his hand on the table, not in anger, but with a firmness that silenced everyone. "Mr. Thorne, Ms. Scott is not just an intern. She is a financial engineer with honors, who has already saved us $180 million. She has demonstrated an understanding of our system that many of you, with years of experience, do not possess. And, for your information, she will not only use the software, she will optimize it. She has the energy, the intelligence, and the audacity that this company needs." He looked directly at Mr. Thorne. "Juliet will lead this project. Any objections?" Silence was the only answer. Juliet felt a warmth in her chest. It was the first time someone had publicly defended her with such vehemence. Mr. Thorne, humiliated, merely nodded, his eyes flashing with contained anger. From that moment on, the line between Juliet and the executives became even more blurred. She was Derek's protégée, and that made her a target. Long working hours had become the norm. Juliet and Derek were often the last to leave the office, immersed in spreadsheets and discussions about financial strategies. One night, around 10 p.m., Derek closed his laptop. "Juliet, have you had dinner yet?" "No, Mr. Byrne. I was thinking of ordering something." "Please call me Derek." "Neither have I. There's a small Italian bistro on the corner. The food is excellent and it's discreet." "What do you think?" Juliet hesitated. "Dinner with the CEO." That was a step beyond professional, but she was exhausted and hungry. "I accept, Derek." They walked to the bistro, the conversation flowing naturally. They talked about the merger, about the economy, but also about New York, about their dreams. Juliet, for the first time, felt comfortable sharing a little more about herself, about her passion for numbers and her desire to make a difference. Derek, for his part, revealed a more human side, talking about the pressure of inheriting his father's company and the loneliness of being at the top. "You're different, Juliet," Derek said, as they ate a delicious carbonara. "You're not afraid to challenge me, and you're not impressed by my title." "I'm impressed by your intelligence, Derek," Juliet replied, a genuine smile on her lips. "And by your ability to see beyond titles." Derek looked at her, a glint in his eyes that Juliet had never seen before. It was a mixture of admiration and something deeper. That night, under the soft lights of the bistro, the line between professional and personal began to blur. An unexpected connection was blossoming. Business dinners became more frequent, and the conversations more intimate. One night, while reviewing documents in Derek's office, Juliet mentioned her mother. "She's getting better, but it's still a battle. I just wish I could give her the peace she deserves." Derek listened attentively, his eyes fixed on her. "You're an amazing daughter, Juliet. Your mother is lucky to have you." "I'm just doing what anyone would do," she said, shrugging. "No, Juliet, not everyone would. Not everyone has your strength." He leaned a little closer. "And not everyone has your intelligence." Juliet felt a blush rise to her cheeks. She had never been praised like that by a man, much less by someone like Derek Byrne. "You're not what I expected either, Derek," she said, her voice a little softer than usual. "I expected an arrogant, distant billionaire. You're human." Derek laughed, a warm, genuine sound. "I try." He walked her to the door of her apartment that night. The silence between them was comfortable, tinged with a sweet tension. "Good night, Juliet," he said, his voice low. "Good night, Derek." She entered the apartment, her heart pounding, and leaned against the door, feeling the warmth of his gaze still on her. That night, Juliet realized that Derek Byrne was much more than the billionaire CEO she had saved. And he, in turn, began to see Juliet not just as a brilliant intern, but as a woman who challenged him, intrigued him, and somehow made him want to be a better person. The following week, the merger faced a new obstacle. Tech Nippon demanded a golden parachute clause for its senior executives, which, if activated, would cost Byrne Industries an additional $70 million. Byrne Industries executives were panicking. Mr. Thorne argued it was an unavoidable cost. Mrs. Evans tried to negotiate, but the Japanese were adamant. "We can't accept this," Derek said, banging his fist on the table. "It would wipe out a large portion of our gains." "But they won't budge, Derek," Mr. Miller exclaimed, exasperated. "We're stuck." Juliet, who had remained silent, observing the dynamics, raised her hand. "I have an idea." All eyes turned to her, some with skepticism, others with a glimmer of hope. "What's your idea, Juliet?" Derek asked, encouraging her. "Tech Nippon's merger agreement with the Korean semiconductor company, K-Tech, in 2020, Juliet began, her voice firm. They faced a similar situation. The solution was a performance-based vesting clause for K-Tech executives, tied to integration and profitability targets in the first 2 years post-merger. This aligned interests and avoided an immediate golden parachute. Mr. Thorne frowned. "This is different. Japanese culture values efficiency and loyalty, Mr. Thorne," Juliet interrupted, her voice calm but authoritative. "If we show that this approach guarantees long-term stability and success for both companies, they will see the value. Furthermore, the CEO of Tech Nippon, Mr. Tanaka, is a big fan of K-Tech. This could be leverage." Derek looked at her, a glint of admiration in his eyes. "Do you have the details of this clause?" "Yes, Mr. Byrne. I've already prepared a tailored proposal for our merger." She handed him a detailed document. Derek read it quickly, a smile growing on his face. "This is brilliant, Juliet, absolutely brilliant." Mr. Thorne reluctantly had to agree. "It's an elegant solution. I'd say it's an engineering solution, Mr. Thorne," Juliet retorted with a victorious smile. "It works." Juliet's proposal was presented to Tech Nippon, and after some negotiations was accepted. Byrne Industries saved another $70 million, and the merger was back on track. Juliet had become indispensable, but her success was poison to Mr. Thorne. He saw her as a threat, a usurper who had stolen his place of prominence. In his luxurious office overlooking Central Park, he watched Juliet through the glass walls, her expression grim. He saw her laughing with Derek, working late, her energy and intelligence shining through. "She's becoming too powerful," he muttered to himself, squeezing a glass of whiskey. "Too obvious. This can't go on." He picked up the phone and dialed a number. I need a favor. Something discreet. About Miss Juliet. Yes, the intern. I want to know everything about her, every detail, every debt, every weakness. The seed of betrayal had been planted. Mr. Thorne, consumed by envy and the fear of being replaced, was willing to do anything to bring Juliet down. He didn't know, however, that by trying to destroy her, he would only make her stronger and unite her even more with the man she was beginning to love. The weeks unfolded at a frenetic yet rewarding pace. Juliet had established herself as a key player on the mergers team. Her small office, once an impersonal cubicle, was now filled with intricate diagrams, colorful notes, and empty coffee mugs, testaments to her long working hours. She radiated a contagious energy, tackling each challenge with the passion of someone who had finally found her place. The executives, though still resentful, were forced to acknowledge her competence. Mr. Thorne, in particular, watched Juliet with a cold intensity, his eyes following her down the corridors, a silent omen. But Juliet was too focused to notice the lengthening shadow. Her attention was divided between the complex numbers of the merger and the increasingly frequent glances from Derek Byrne. He called her into his office more regularly, not just to discuss work, but to talk about the market, about life in New York, about their dreams. Juliet, for her part, felt a strange warmth in her chest every time he smiled at her, a smile that seemed reserved only for her. One afternoon, while they were reviewing a particularly tedious contract clause, Derek caught her watching him. "Something wrong, Juliet?" he asked, a slight smile on his lips. Juliet blushed. "No, Mr. Byrne, just admiring the view." She gestured to the window where the New York cityscape stretched out. Derek chuckled, a warm sound that made Juliet's heart race. "Ah, yes, the view." He leaned a little closer. "Or perhaps you were admiring my intelligence." Juliet raised an eyebrow, a sarcastic smile playing on his lips. "Your intelligence is undeniable, Mr. Byrne, but the view from the Empire State Building is a little more accessible." Derek shook his head, laughing again. "You're impossible, Juliet Scott. And for some reason, I like that." The chemistry between them was palpable, an electric current running through the room, ignoring the difference in status, the formality of the environment, and the curious glances of the staff. The romance, like a subtle melody, was beginning to blossom. Juliet's life, however, wasn't all work and discreet flirting. Her mother, Helen's health, was starting to deteriorate again. Medical bills were piling up, and the stress was taking its toll. One morning, Juliet arrived at work with swollen eyes and a worrying pallor. She tried to hide it, but Derek, with his keen observation, noticed. He called her into his office. "Juliet, are you all right? You look exhausted." Juliet hesitated. She didn't want to seem weak. She didn't want him to feel sorry for her. "I'm fine, Mr. Byrne. Just a difficult night." Derek looked at her with an intensity that made her feel completely exposed. "Juliet, I'm not blind, and I'm not your boss now. I'm a friend. You can tell me." Juliet sighed, the barrier she had been holding up crumbling. "It's my mother. The doctors have found a new complication. The treatment is expensive, and I don't know how I'm going to afford it." The words came out in a whisper, heavy with despair. Derek sat on the edge of his desk, looking at her with genuine compassion. "Juliet, why didn't you tell me? I didn't mean to bother you. I didn't want you to think I was trying to take advantage of you." "Taking advantage. Juliet, you saved my company $180 million. You're the most honest person I know." He paused. "I can help." Juliet shook her head. "No, I can't accept charity. This isn't charity. It's a loan, no interest. You pay me back when you can. Or better yet, consider it a bonus for your exceptional work on the merger." Juliet looked at him, her eyes welling up with tears. "I don't know what to say. Tell me you'll let me help you." He extended his hand, and Juliet took it. The touch was gentle yet firm, conveying a strength she desperately needed. In that moment of vulnerability, the connection between them deepened, transcending the professional and touching the personal. Juliet felt overwhelming gratitude and something more, something that felt very much like love. With Derek's discreet help, Helen's situation began to stabilize. Juliet felt a huge weight lifted from her shoulders. On a sunny Saturday, Derek invited her for a walk in Central Park. Juliet, wearing a light summer dress, felt strangely at ease beside him, away from suits and boardrooms. They strolled along the tree-lined paths, talking about everything and nothing. Juliet spoke of her dreams of an MBA, her passion for solving complex problems, the joy of seeing her mother smile again. Derek, in turn, shared stories of his childhood, the pressure of taking over the young company, the loneliness at the top. They stopped near a lake, watching the rowboats. The golden afternoon sun painted the sky. Derek turned to Juliet, his blue eyes shining with an intensity that took her breath away. "Juliet, I need to tell you something." Juliet felt her heart pound. She knew what was coming, and part of her was terrified. Part of her was anxiously waiting. "I care about you, Juliet, a lot. More than I should, maybe. But I can't help it. You're the smartest, bravest, and most real woman I've ever met, and I'm in love with you." Derek's words hung in the air, sweet and overwhelming. Juliet felt tears welling up in her eyes. She was scared. Scared of the difference in worlds, scared of getting hurt, scared of not being good enough. But looking at Derek, at the sincerity in his eyes, she knew she couldn't deny what she felt. "Derek, me too. I'm in love with you too," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Derek smiled, a radiant smile that lit up his whole face. He leaned in, and Juliet closed her eyes, expecting a kiss. But he only touched her forehead with his, a tender gesture full of promise. "I want to do this right, Juliet. No rush, no secrets. I want you to trust me." Juliet nodded, feeling a deep peace. In that magical moment in Central Park, under the benevolent gaze of the New York sun, the love between Juliet and Derek became an undeniable reality, a beacon of hope amidst the uncertainties. Their first official date was at a discreet yet elegant restaurant in the West Village. Juliet, wearing a simple yet sophisticated black dress, felt confident. Derek, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, couldn't take his eyes off her. The conversation flowed easily, filled with laughter and knowing glances. They talked about their dreams, their fears, their hopes. Juliet felt more comfortable with Derek than with anyone else in her life. At the end of dinner, while waiting for their car, Derek pulled her aside to a more secluded corner. The street was busy, but for them, the world seemed to have stopped. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs caressing her cheeks. "You're beautiful, Juliet, and so incredibly intelligent." Juliet felt her heart pound in her chest. She could feel his warm breath on her face, the scent of his woody cologne. Their eyes met, and the world around them vanished. Derek leaned in, his lips almost touching hers. Juliet closed her eyes, waiting for the kiss she so longed for. But at the last second, he stopped, a mischievous smile on his lips. "I don't want to rush things, Juliet. I want every moment to be perfect." Juliet opened her eyes, a little frustrated, but also enchanted. "You're a torturer, Derek Byrne." He laughed, a husky, sexy sound, maybe, but I promise it will be worth it. He kissed her gently on the forehead, then guided her to the waiting car. The tension between them was almost unbearable, but it was a delicious tension, full of promises and the anticipation of a love that was only beginning to unfold. As Juliet and Derek's romance blossomed, Mr. Thorne's shadow grew thicker. He wasn't blind to the growing closeness between the intern and the CEO, the work dinners, the lingering glances, the way Derek defended Juliet at every meeting. All of this fueled the CFO's envy and fear. He saw Juliet not only as a threat to his position, but as a personal affront. In his office, he spent hours analyzing reports, not from the company, but about Juliet. He had hired a private investigator, and the reports arrived regularly, detailing Juliet's modest life, her student debts, her mother's illness. "She's an opportunist," he muttered to himself, throwing a report across the table. "A social climber. She's using Derek to get ahead. He won't get away with it. He won't get away with her." Mr. Thorne began planting seeds of doubt among the other executives, with subtle comments about Juliet's undue influence over Derek, about how she was distracting the CEO from his duties. Miss Evans and Mr. Miller, though not as openly hostile as Thorne, began to look at Juliet with a mixture of distrust and resentment. The web of intrigue was being woven, and Juliet, though he sensed a premonition, still couldn't see the magnitude of the approaching threat. Juliet was too intelligent not to notice the change in the atmosphere. Mr. Thorne's gaze was colder, his words sharper. She caught him watching her from afar, a calculating glint in his eyes. One afternoon, as she left a meeting, she saw him talking quietly with Mr. Hayes, and they both stopped abruptly as she passed. Juliet felt a chill down her spine. She knew something was wrong. She confided in Lena over lunch. "Lena, I feel like Mr. Thorne is plotting something. He hates me. He hates everyone who's smarter than him, Juliet," Lena said, shrugging, "which includes 90% of the company." "No, it's different. It's personal. I catch him watching me, and he's whispering with the others. I feel like I'm being watched." Lena frowned. Do you think he would do something to harm you?" "I don't know. But I don't trust him. I just can't pinpoint what—" Juliet felt a knot in her stomach. She had a feeling that something big was coming, something that could threaten not only her career, but perhaps even her relationship with Derek. She tried to ignore it, but the premonition persisted, a dark cloud on the horizon of her new and happy world. Mr. Thorne's shadow was growing, and Juliet knew she needed to be prepared. Romance blossomed, but danger lurked, ready to strike when they least expected it. Mr. Thorne had worked meticulously, like a venomous spider weaving its web. The information gathered by the private investigator, Juliet's debts, her mother's illness, her desperate need for money for her MBA, was the perfect basis for his trap. He forged emails, created false transaction records, and planted circumstantial evidence linking Juliet to an insider trading scheme. His plan was simple: accuse her of using privileged information from the merger with Tech Nippon to profit in the stock market, tarnishing her reputation and eliminating her once and for all. One afternoon, he summoned one of his most loyal subordinates, an ambitious young analyst named Mark, to his office. "Mark, I need you to perform a forensic audit of Ms. Juliet's access logs to our servers. Look for any unusual activity, especially regarding merger information." Mark nodded without question. Mr. Thorne smiled, a cold, calculating smile. "And make sure you find something." Mark, though uncomfortable, understood the message. He knew his career depended on his loyalty to Mr. Thorne. The trap was set. Mr. Thorne had chosen the perfect moment. Derek Byrne was in Tokyo, finalizing the last details of the merger with Tech Nippon, unreachable for a few hours due to the time difference and a crucial meeting. Juliet was alone, vulnerable, and the storm was about to break. It was a grey Tuesday in New York. Juliet was in her office, engrossed in spreadsheets, when her phone rang. It was Derek's secretary, Ms. Davies, her voice unusually tense. "Ms. Juliet, the board has called an emergency meeting, now in the main room." "An emergency meeting about what? I wasn't told, only that their presence is mandatory." Juliet felt a chill. Something was wrong. She picked up her briefcase and walked down the hall, the other employees' stares looking more curious than usual. As she approached the boardroom, she saw Mr. Thorne, Mrs. Evans, Mr. Miller, and Mr. Hayes, all with serious expressions, waiting for her. Mr. Thorne had an almost imperceptible smile on his lips. "Miss Juliet, please come in," he said, his voice unctuous. Juliet entered the room. The entire board was there, including the chairman, Mr. Peterson, a man of stern face and impeccable reputation. Derek's chair was empty. A knot formed in Juliet's stomach. She felt the weight of all eyes on her, a mixture of curiosity, judgment, and, in some cases, satisfaction. She sat in the chair indicated to her, her heart pounding. The air in the room was heavy, not with the frustration of before, but with a cold, calculating tension. Juliet knew she was about to face the greatest challenge of her life, and this time there was no Article 51A to save her. Mr. Peterson banged the gavel, and the meeting began. "Miss Juliet, we have been summoned today to discuss serious allegations against you. Mr. Thorne, please present the evidence." Mr. Thorne stood up, a victorious smile on his face. He projected a series of charts and documents onto the screen. "Board members, we discovered that Ms. Juliet, our engineering intern and temporary consultant, used insider information from the Tech Nippon merger to engage in insider trading." He pointed to a chart showing an unusual spike in the stock of a small technology company that was a supplier to Tech Nippon, days before the merger announcement. The transactions were made through an account in the name of his mother, Helen Scott, but the access IPs and trading patterns are identical to those of Ms. Juliet. He showed forged emails that appeared to be from Juliet to his mother, discussing investment opportunities before the announcement. Furthermore, Ms. Juliet has considerable student debt, and her mother faces serious health problems requiring expensive treatments. This, coupled with her urgent need for funds for an MBA, provides a clear motive for her actions. Juliet felt her blood run cold. "That's a lie," she exclaimed, her voice trembling with anger and shock. "I would never do such a thing. The emails are fake. My mother's account is for her medical expenses." Mr. Thorne laughed, a dry, disdainful sound. "With all due respect, Ms. Juliet, the evidence is quite clear. Your denial is understandable, but not convincing." Mrs. Evans, who had previously seemed indifferent, now looked at Juliet with disapproval. Mr. Miller and Mr. Hayes had expressions of barely disguised triumph. Juliet tried to defend herself, but her words were lost amidst the accusations and murmurs of the council. She felt everyone's eyes on her, judging her, condemning her. "Where is Derek?" she thought desperately. "He would believe me. He would defend me." But Derek was thousands of miles away, and Juliet was alone. The humiliation cut Juliet deeper than any knife. She was being publicly dismembered, her reputation and dignity reduced to ashes. A circus of lies destroying her life. After a brief deliberation, Mr. Peterson banged the gavel again. "Ms. Juliet, given the evidence presented, the board has voted for your immediate suspension from all duties at Byrne Industries, without pay, while a full investigation is conducted. If the allegations are confirmed, you will be dismissed and face legal consequences." Juliet felt the world spin. Suspension, dismissal, legal consequences. Her life, her dreams, everything she had fought to build was crumbling. She looked at Mr. Thorne, who stared back at her with a satisfied smile. That was the face of betrayal. "I am innocent," she whispered, but her voice was weak, almost inaudible. No one seemed to care. "Please, Ms. Juliet, accompany security to collect your belongings and leave the premises," Mr. Peterson instructed. Juliet stood, her legs trembling. She felt the scornful and pitying stares as she was escorted out of the room. As she walked down the corridors, she saw some employees whispering and pointing. Her image, once that of the brilliant intern, was now that of the criminal. She was led to her small office, where a security guard watched her as she gathered her few belongings. She looked at the diagrams and notes, the testaments to her hard work, now tainted by the accusation. She picked up her briefcase, feeling it devoid of meaning. As she left the building, the New York sun seemed colder, the air heavier. Juliet's world had collapsed, and she didn't know how she would rise from the rubble. The news spread like wildfire. Within hours, major news outlets in New York and across the country were splashed sensational headlines. Engineering intern accused of insider trading at Byrne Industries. The scandal that rocks the tech giant. Beauty and the Beast. Intern uses insider information to profit. Photos of Juliet, some taken without her knowledge in the company hallways, were displayed alongside photos of Mr. Thorne, posing for the camera with an expression of seriousness and integrity. Evening news programs discussed the case, with experts opining on the greed and lack of ethics of the younger generation. Juliet's name, previously unknown, was now synonymous with scandal. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing with unknown numbers and hate messages on social media. She saw comments about her appearance, about how she used her beauty to deceive, about how women like her shouldn't be in positions of power. Juliet felt dirty, exposed, her privacy invaded. She hung up the phone, throwing it onto the sofa. The world seemed to be against her. Her reputation, built with years of study and hard work, was destroyed in the blink of an eye, leaving her in an abyss of shame and despair. Juliet locked herself in her small apartment in Queens. The curtains were drawn, the daylight blocked out, as if she could hide from the outside world. She didn't answer anyone's calls, not even Lena's or her mother's, especially not Derek's. He had called incessantly, leaving voicemails full of worry and fury. But Juliet couldn't listen. The pain of betrayal was too deep. She felt ashamed, humiliated, and above all, helpless. How could he leave her alone? How could he be absent when she needed him most? She knew he was in Tokyo, but logic couldn't soothe the emotional wound. She felt used, a pawn in a corporate game bigger than herself. She lay on the sofa, hugging a pillow, tears streaming silently down her face. The image of Mr. Thorne's victorious smile replayed in her mind, a constant torture. Isolation was her only defense against the overwhelming pain, but it also trapped her in a cycle of despair and resentment. Lena, worried, went to Juliet's apartment. She knocked on the door repeatedly, but there was no answer. She called Helen, Juliet's mother, who was at home recovering. "She's not answering." "Helen, I'm worried." Helen, despite her own frailty, insisted on going. Together, they managed to get the doorman to open the door. They found Juliet on the sofa, pale and with swollen eyes. "Juliet, my daughter," Helen said, sitting down beside her and stroking her hair. "You need to eat. You need to talk." "I don't want to talk, Mom. I just want all of this to go away." Lena sat on the floor, holding Juliet's hand. "Juliet, you know we don't believe this, right? Nobody who knows you believes it. The whole world believes it. Lena, and the board, and Derek. He wasn't there." Juliet's voice broke. "He'll be back, darling," Helen said firmly. "And he'll clear your name. I know it." Lena nodded. "He's been calling non-stop. He's furious." Juliet shook her head. "It doesn't matter. I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to talk to anyone. I just want to disappear." The love and support of her mother and friend were a small beacon in the darkness, but the pain of humiliation was so deep that Juliet could barely see the light. Derek Byrne landed at New York's JFK airport, exhausted, but with the Japanese merger finally sealed. His phone exploded with messages and missed calls. The first one he saw was from Lena. "Juliet is in trouble. Mr. Thorne framed her. She's been suspended." Derek felt a chill down his spine. He called Lena immediately. Her voice was choked. She explained everything. The accusation, the board meeting, the media, Juliet's isolation. With each word, Derek's fury grew. He hung up, his blue eyes darkened with anger. He tried calling Juliet, but she didn't answer. He called Mr. Peterson, the chairman of the board. "Und what the hell happened while I was gone?" Derek roared into the phone, his voice cutting through the air. Mr. Peterson tried to explain, but Derek wasn't listening. "You suspended Juliet based on fabricated evidence from Mr. Thorne. You know what he's capable of, Mr. Byrne. The evidence was a sham. I know Juliet. She's the most honest person I've ever met, and I'm going to prove it. I'm going to clear her name, and Mr. Thorne will pay for it." Derek hung up the phone with a bang. He hailed a taxi, not to his luxurious penthouse, but to Juliet's apartment in Queens. He needed to see her, needed to make her understand that he was there for her. Derek's fury was a consuming fire, but it was a fury fueled by love and an unwavering determination to protect the woman who had stolen his heart. The battle was only beginning. Derek Byrne's fury was a driving force. After the failed visit to Juliet's apartment, where she refused to open the door, he returned to his office, determined to dismantle Mr. Thorne's web of lies. He didn't sleep. He spent the entire night reviewing every email, every report, every transaction that could possibly have any connection to Juliet or Mr. Thorne. He knew he needed more than his intuition. He needed irrefutable proof. At dawn, he called the number he kept for emergencies, that of Mr. Wallace, New York's most renowned private investigator, known for his discretion and brutal efficiency. "Wallace, I need you. Now, it's urgent." Derek explained the situation concisely, his voice heavy with a cold urgency. "I want everything on Mr. Thorne, every transaction, every communication, every move, and I want you to prove Juliet Scott's innocence." Mr. Wallace, on the other end of the line, listened attentively. "Understood, Mr. Byrne. This is going to be expensive. Money is no object. Justice is." Mr. Wallace arrived at Derek's office an hour later, a middle-aged man with sharp eyes and an aura of someone who has seen it all. Derek handed him all the documents he had gathered, including the forged reports that incriminated Juliet. "I need you to find the needle in the haystack, Wallace. Mr. Thorne is a rat, but he made a mistake. Everyone does." The hunt had begun. Derek was on a mission, not only to save his company, but to clear the name of the woman he loved, who had been unjustly destroyed. Mr. Wallace and his team worked tirelessly. They delved into Byrne Industries, digital records, traced communications, analyzed metadata, and even gained forensic access to Mr. Thorne's personal computer. In less than 48 hours, the first pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Mr. Wallace called Derek. "Mr. Byrne, we have something, and it's big." Derek went immediately to the investigator's discreet office, located in an old building in the financial district. Mr. Wallace presented his findings. "We found highly sophisticated document forgery software on Mr. Thorne's personal computer. He used it to create the emails and transaction records that incriminated Miss Scott. Furthermore, his browsing history shows that he extensively researched insider trading and how to forge digital evidence." Derek felt a knot in his stomach. "There's more. Yes. We discovered that Mr. Thorne has a history of sabotaging other employees he perceived as threats. There are 3 previous cases, at different companies, where he used similar tactics to bring down colleagues who were rising in the ranks. One of them resulted in a defamation lawsuit that was settled out of millions. He is a serial predator, Mr. Wallace showed Derek a series of documents, emails, and screenshots that were irrefutable evidence. There was even a record of a money transfer to the account of analyst Mark. the same one who found the evidence against Juliet. He paid Mark to plant the evidence, Derek said, his voice low and dangerous. Exactly. Mr. Wallace nodded. And most importantly, Mr. Byrne, there is absolutely no evidence linking Mrs. Scott to any illegal activity. She is completely innocent. Derek closed his eyes for a moment, feeling a mixture of relief and renewed fury. Thorne, he'll pay for this. The truth was coming to light, and Mr. Thorne's web of lies was about to unravel spectacularly. Derek called an emergency board meeting. The atmosphere was tense, but different from the last time. Now, it was Mr. Thorne who seemed uncomfortable, although he tried to maintain a facade of confidence. The other board members, including Mr. Peterson, were curious and apprehensive. Derek entered the room, accompanied by Mr. Wallace, who carried a briefcase full of documents. Derek wasted no time on formalities. Gentlemen, Ms. Evans, I have summoned you here today to correct a serious error. An error that cost an innocent employee her reputation and nearly cost this company its integrity. He looked directly at Mr. Thorne. Mr. Thorne, our CFO, is a criminal, a liar and a saboteur. Mr. Thorne stood up abruptly. This is absurd, Mr. Byrne. I demand a retraction. You're not asking for anything, Thorne, Derek retorted, his voice cold and sharp. Mr. Wallace, my FBI-licensed private investigator, has irrefutable proof that you fabricated the evidence against Juliet Scott and other employees. He presented the documents, the screenshots of the forgery software, the payment records for Mark, Mr. Thorne's history of sabotage. With each revelation, the faces of the board members paled. Mr. Peterson, shocked, looked at Mr. Thorne. Is this true, Mr. Thorne? Mr. Thorne, caught red-handed, tried to stammer an excuse, but the words failed him. His face was red, sweat trickling down his forehead. I can explain. There's nothing to explain, Thorne, Derek said, his voice full of contempt. You're not just a liar, you're a coward. You tried to destroy the life of a brilliant young woman because of your own insecurity and envy. The room was silent, except for Mr. Thorne's heavy breathing. The truth had finally been revealed, and the CFO's downfall would be as spectacular as his rise. Mr. Peterson, with an expression of deep disappointment and anger, banged the gavel. Mr. Thorne, you are fired, effective immediately. And Byrne Industries will fully cooperate with the authorities to ensure you face all legal consequences for your crimes. Mrs. Evans and Mr. Miller, who had previously sided with Thorne, now looked at him with disgust. Mr. Thorne tried to argue, to plead, but it was in vain. 2 security guards were called and escorted him out of the room, and then out of the building, under the shocked gazes of the employees. His career was ruined, his reputation in tatters. Justice, though late, had arrived. Mr. Thorne, who had tried to destroy Juliet, now faced his own ruin, a grim reminder that the truth always finds a way. The following day, the board of Byrne Industries called a press conference. Derek Byrne stood beside Mr. Peterson, who read a formal statement. On behalf of Byrne Industries and its board of directors, we would like to publicly apologize to Miss Juliet Scott. The accusations made against her were unfounded and based on evidence fabricated by a former employee. Ms. Scott is a professional of impeccable integrity and an invaluable addition to our team. Her suspension was a grave mistake, and we are working to restore her reputation and compensate her for this injustice. Derek then took the floor. His voice was firm, but full of emotion. Juliet Scott is one of the brightest minds I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. She saved this company from a $180 million loss. She is the embodiment of dedication and intelligence. What happened to her is a disgrace, and I, personally, will do everything in my power to ensure her reputation is fully restored. Juliet, who was watching the press conference from her apartment with Lena and her mother, felt tears streaming down her face. They weren't tears of sadness, but of relief and gratitude. Her name was being cleared. The truth had prevailed, and Juliet was finally free from the shadow of the unjust accusation. Hours after the press conference, Derek knocked on Juliet's apartment door. She hesitated for a moment, but Lena encouraged her. "Go, Juliet, he's here for you." Juliet opened the door. Derek was there, his eyes red with tiredness, but with an expression of relief and love. "Juliet," he said, his voice choked with emotion, "I'm so sorry. I should have been here." "I should have protected you," Juliet interrupted him, placing her hand on his face. "It wasn't your fault, Derek. I know you were in Tokyo. I was so angry, so hurt. I couldn't think straight." Derek pulled her into a tight hug, and Juliet allowed herself to cry in his arms. "I love you, Juliet," he whispered into her hair. "I love you more than anything. I couldn't bear to lose you." Juliet lifted her face, her teary eyes meeting his. "I love you too, Derek. I was so scared." They kissed, a long, deep kiss, full of relief, love, and the promise of a future together. The crisis had separated them, but it had also strengthened their bond in a way that nothing else could. They had faced adversity and emerged stronger, more united. The reconciliation was more than a reunion. It was the reaffirmation of a love that had been tested and proven, a love that blossomed in darkness and emerged brighter than ever. The next day, Juliet went to Derek's office. He greeted her with a warm smile. "Juliet, the board and I would like to make you an offer." Juliet felt her heart race. "What kind of offer?" Derek stood up and walked over to her, his eyes shining. "We would like to offer you the position of Chief Financial Officer at Byrne Industries." Juliet was speechless. CFO, at 26 years old. It was a gigantic leap, a recognition of his undeniable worth, his intelligence, and his integrity. "CFO," she stammered, "but I'm so young." "You're the most qualified person for the job, Juliet," Derek said firmly. "You have the intelligence, the ethics, and the vision. You've saved this company twice. You've proven your worth under fire. And I need someone I can blindly trust by my side." Juliet looked at him, then at the stunning view of New York through the window. She had dreamed of an MBA, of a successful career, but she never imagined anything like this. "I accept, Derek," she said, a radiant smile on her face. "I accept." Derek smiled, a smile of pure happiness. "Welcome to the team, CFO Scott." The intern who was once invisible was now at the top, a testament to her resilience, her intelligence, and the love that had guided her through the darkness. The future of Byrne Industries and the future of Juliet and Derek had never looked so bright. The boardroom, which had once been the scene of her humiliation, now welcomed her with respect and admiration. Juliet sat at the table, no longer as an intern, but as the heroine who had saved the company. Mr. Peterson, chairman of the board, presided over the meeting with a smile. "Juliet, we would like to formalize our offer. The position of Chief Financial Officer of Byrne Industries is yours, with all the benefits and responsibilities that it entails." The other board members nodded, some with genuine smiles, others with reluctant acceptance. Derek, seated beside her, discreetly shook her hand, a look of pride and expectation in his eyes. Juliet took a deep breath. It was the pinnacle of her career, the recognition of years of study and sacrifice. But she had something else on her mind. "I am immensely grateful for the offer, Mr. Peterson, and to all of you," said Juliet, his voice calm but firm. "It is an indescribable honor. However, I cannot accept." A shocked silence fell over the room. The executives exchanged incredulous glances. Mr. Peterson's smile faltered. Derek, standing beside her, felt a chill run down his spine. "Can't you accept?" Mr. Miller stammered. "But why?" I was accepted into Stanford's MBA program in financial engineering with a full scholarship, Juliet revealed, a glint of determination in her eyes. It's an opportunity I can't refuse. It's my dream. The shock was palpable. Mrs. Evans dropped her pen. Mr. Hayes cleared his throat. Derek, though surprised, felt a surge of pride. He knew how much she valued education and ambition. Stanford, Derek said, a slow smile forming on his face. With a full scholarship, that's incredible, Juliet. Mr. Peterson, recovering, nodded. Indeed. A remarkable achievement. Although we are disappointed to lose her, we understand her decision. Juliet had made her choice, and it was a choice that would take her away from New York, but closer to her own dreams. After the meeting, Derek took Juliet to his office. He pulled her into a tight hug. I knew you were ambitious, Juliet, but this is something more. I'm incredibly proud of you. I was afraid of letting you down, she confessed, snuggling into his arms. Let me down. You could never let me down. You're following your dream, and I'll support you every step of the way. Derek kissed the top of her head. But Stanford is in California. Juliet looked up. I know, it's going to be difficult, but not impossible, he said, his eyes meeting hers. We'll make this work. Visits, video calls, weekends. We're stronger than any distance. Juliet smiled, feeling the warmth of his love. I believe in us. Distance was a challenge, but their love was a force that promised to overcome any obstacle. Byrne Industries threw a grand farewell party for Juliet. The ballroom was packed with colleagues, executives. Even Mrs. Evans and Mr. Miller seemed extra friendly, and, of course, Lena and Helen, Juliet's mother, who was beaming with pride. Derek took to the stage to give a speech. Juliet Scott, he began, his voice echoing through the hall. She came to Byrne Industries as an intern, invisible to many. But in a short time, she became indispensable. She saved this company from a $180 million loss, exposed corruption, and showed us the true meaning of intelligence and integrity. He looked at Juliet, a warm smile on his lips. Juliet, you are not just a brilliant colleague, but an inspiration. And although Byrne Industries will miss you, we know you are destined for even greater things. Good luck at Stanford. Lena, with tears in her eyes, also gave a moving speech, recalling the days in the underground and Juliet's journey. You were always the smartest of us, Juliet. Now the world will know. Juliet received meaningful gifts, including a state-of-the-art laptop from the board and an engraved watch from Derek, inscribed, "To the woman who taught me the true value of courage. Always yours, D." She hugged everyone, feeling a bittersweet mix of sadness at parting and excitement for the future. The party was a testament to the impact Juliet had made and a celebration of her extraordinary journey. JFK Airport was bustling, but for Juliet and Derek, the world seemed to have stopped. They were holding hands, their eyes locked on each other. Helen and Lena were there too, their eyes brimming with tears. I'm going to miss you so much, Derek, Juliet whispered, tears streaming down her face. Me too, my love, but it's not goodbye. It's see you later. He kissed her, a long, passionate kiss that promised a future. Call me every day, every single day, and I'll visit you. I know you will. Helen hugged Juliet. My daughter, I'm so proud. Lena hugged her tightly. Rock Stanford, Juliet. Juliet waved to them as she walked through the boarding gate, her heart heavy but full of hope. She looked back one last time, seeing Derek standing there, watching her until she disappeared from sight. The goodbye was painful, but the promise of love and reunion was a balm to her soul, propelling Juliet into her new adventure. Life at Stanford was a whirlwind of studies, debates, and new friendships. Juliet threw herself headlong into the MBA program, her sharp mind absorbing every financial engineering concept with ease. She excelled in class, her contributions always insightful and innovative, impressing professors and classmates alike. She formed a study group with some of the brightest students and quickly became a natural leader. Video calls with Derek were the anchor of her week, precious moments of connection and laughter. They shared their days, their challenges, their dreams. Derek's visits to Stanford were landmark events, filling the campus with the imposing presence of the billionaire CEO. But to Juliet, he was just Derek, her love. Lena also called regularly, sharing news from Barron Industries and gossip from New York. Juliet was thriving, growing not only academically but as a person. She was building her own empire of knowledge, paving the way for an even brighter future. Distance was a test, but Juliet and Derek were proving that true love knows no barriers and that ambition, when shared, can strengthen a relationship in unexpected ways. The California sun bathed the Stanford campus in a golden glow, and the main auditorium vibrated with the energy of hundreds of graduates. Juliet, wearing her gown and cap, felt a mixture of euphoria and nostalgia. 2 years had passed in the blink of an eye, and she had excelled, not only as one of the top students in the MBA program in financial engineering, but as an inspiring voice for her peers. In the audience, Helen, her mother, was radiant, her eyes brimming with pride. Beside her, Lena smiled, clapping at each name called. And Derek, seated a little further ahead, watched Juliet with a look that mixed admiration, love, and palpable anticipation. He had flown from New York, as he always did for important moments, and his unwavering support had been Juliet's rock throughout the MBA. This was not just the end of one chapter, but the beginning of a new one, full of promise and a love that had withstood distance and adversity. When Juliet Scott's name was called to receive her diploma and give the closing speech, a wave of applause echoed through the auditorium. She stepped onto the stage, a confident smile on her face. "Good afternoon, everyone," Juliet began, her voice clear and resonant. 2 years ago, I was in a very different place. I was an intern, invisible, underestimated, and with a mountain of debt. But in a moment of desperation, I found the courage to speak up, to use my voice, to show what I knew. She paused, her eyes meeting Derek's in the audience. Someone once told me that all we need is 30 seconds of courage. 30 seconds to be who you truly are, to stand up for what's right, to take risks. And I've discovered that this person was right. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what others think of you. What matters is your intelligence, your integrity, and your courage to be yourself. She ended her speech with a powerful message about the importance of using knowledge to make a difference in the world, and the auditorium erupted in a standing ovation. Helen and Lena wept with emotion, and Derek smiled, his eyes shining with undeniable love. Juliet's speech was not just a celebration of her journey, but an ode to resilience and the power of the female voice. As Juliet received congratulations and prepared to descend from the stage, Derek Byrne, to everyone's surprise, rose from his seat and walked toward the stage. The dean tried to intervene, but Derek ignored him, his eyes fixed on Juliet. He climbed the steps, and the auditorium fell into expectant silence. Juliet looked at him, confused, but with a smile. Derek knelt down, taking a small velvet box from his pocket. "Juliet Scott," he said, his voice emotional but firm. "You saved me from 180 million. You saved me from myself. You taught me what courage is, what integrity is, what love is. I can't imagine my life without you." He opened the box, revealing a dazzling diamond ring. "Will you marry me?" Juliet brought her hands to her mouth, her eyes brimming with tears. Tears streamed freely down her face. She looked at her mother, at Lena, at the shocked audience. "Yes!" she exclaimed, her voice choked with emotion. "Yes! 1,000 times yes!" Derek stood up and Juliet threw herself into his arms, kissing him passionately as the auditorium erupted in applause and whistles. The marriage proposal on the graduation stage was a fairy tale moment, a public testament to a love that had surpassed all expectations and adversities. Months later, under a blue New York sky, Juliet and Derek were married in an intimate and elegant ceremony in a secret garden in the heart of the city. Juliet looked stunning in a simple yet sophisticated wedding dress with a delicate veil. Derek, in a tailored suit, couldn't take his eyes off her. Helen, Juliet's mother, sat in the front row, radiant. Lena, as maid of honor, smiled, moved. Members of the Byrne Industries board, including Mr. Peterson, were present, witnessing the union of their CEO with the woman who had transformed the company. The vows were heartfelt, full of promises of love, partnership, and a future built together. "I promise to love you, honor you, and support you every step of the way," Derek said, his eyes fixed on Juliet's. "And I promise to be your partner, your confidant, and your biggest fan," Juliet replied, her voice breaking. The kiss that sealed their union was long and passionate, a symbol of a love that had blossomed against all odds. Juliet and Derek's wedding was not just the union of two souls, but a celebration of a journey of overcoming challenges, intelligence, and a love that redefined success. The former basement of Byrne Industries, once a labyrinth of pipes and equipment, had been completely transformed. Now, it was a state-of-the-art training center with modern classrooms, technology labs, and collaborative spaces. The sign at the entrance read, "Byrne Scott Foundation for Financial Engineering Talent." Juliet and Derek were there, inaugurating the center. "This place," Juliet said, his voice full of emotion, "is a testament to the fact that talent can be found anywhere, that intelligence has no social class, no gender. It's for young people who, like me, need a chance." Derek smiled, putting his arm around her waist. "And it's a testament to the woman who taught me that." Lena, now the foundation's director of operations, guided a group of young interns, her eyes shining with the same passion Juliet had possessed. Juliet and Derek worked together, not only at Byrne Industries, but also at the foundation, shaping the future of a new generation of financial engineers. The Byrne Scott Foundation was Juliet and Derek's legacy, a beacon of hope and opportunity, proving that true success is measured by the impact one has on the lives of others. One afternoon, Juliet was in one of the foundation's classrooms, watching a young intern, Sarah, struggling with a complex algorithm. Sarah, in her early 20s, reminded Juliet of herself. Juliet approached. "Are you having trouble, Sarah?" Sarah blushed. "Yes, Mrs. Byrne. This algorithm is complicated." Juliet smiled. "I know. I've been there." She sat down next to Sarah, picked up a pen, and began to explain, simplifying the complex concepts with the same clarity that had once amazed the board of Byrne Industries. Sarah looked at her in admiration. "Thank you, Mrs. Byrne. You are an inspiration." Juliet smiled. "Remember, Sarah, all you need is 30 seconds of courage. Use your voice. Believe in yourself." Sarah nodded, her eyes shining with newfound determination. The cycle was complete. Juliet, the unseen intern, had become the mentor, passing the torch of inspiration to the next generation, ensuring that her legacy of courage, intelligence, and love would continue to shine. The sun was setting, painting the sky with shades of orange and purple. "We did it, Derek," Juliet whispered. "We did it, my love." Their love, born of adversity and forged in courage, was a testament to the fact that true value lies not in wealth or status, but in intelligence, integrity, and the ability to make a difference. The intern who saved the billionaire not only won his heart and a fortune, but built a legacy of love and honor. A legacy that proved that, with 30 seconds of courage, anyone can change their world. and the world around them. Tell me here in the comments where you are listening to me from. Subscribe to the channel. Activate the bell for new stories.